tackles and maybe force them to make a few mistakes like we did see with the defense in Chicago. And for Dallas, it's just letting Ezekiel Elliott control the clock and Dak Prescott not making a big mistake, because we've seen him at times try to force things and make a huge mistake and, put Dallas in a bad way or cost Dallas a game. So I think at this point you're looking for, Dak to not lose the football game for him, playing mistake-free football.
Ed, let's go on over to Foxborough. God, I hate saying that. Here it is, wintertime playoffs. Here we go again. Deja vu. Patriots, just insert name here. They play the Chargers, the L.A. Chargers. See, I got that right. I mentioned earlier I got a friend of mine that works out in San Diego. He works with me, but he's based in San Diego, and he was telling me he was in town this week, and he was like, I hate those Chargers, so I got to go with the Patriots. I'm like, my God, dude, what is wrong with you? He's like, man, I hate the Chargers because they left San Diego, and that's the only reason he doesn't like them. I'm like, you got to get over it for 1 week. But we look at the Chargers and the Patriots. Obviously, Phillip Rivers is a proven quarterback. I mean, he may have 9 kids, but he's a great quarterback. And he plays Tom Brady, which we know what Tom Brady can do in the postseason. We don't have to keep repeating and puking up his stats. We know what they are. We know what kind of quarterback Tom Brady is. And Phillip Rivers has finally been able to win some playoff games. But does he have what it takes to win in Foxborough?
Well, the Chargers have won some big road games this year. They've gone into Pittsburgh and won. They've gone into some hostile territories. They went into Baltimore last week in the opening round of the playoffs, and they won. So, they're not going to back down on the road no matter who it is. And, the fascinating thing about the Patriots is this is going to be, they've been to the AFC Championship game 7 straight years now. They're trying to get back to their 8th. And, I've said it before that, to dominate the AFC East the way the Patriots have, the hapless AFC East with those teams that can never get things right and are never able to rise up and challenge New England even once during this run is one thing. But to dominate the conference, the AFC the way they have, trying to get to their 8th straight AFC title game is just really fascinating and, something that I don't think will ever be done again. And, you have to kind of, on one hand, enjoy that greatness, but on the other hand, you have to root for it to end sometime. Sooner or later you get sick and tired of it. And I think everybody outside of those New England states, Massachusetts, Vermont, Rhode Island, are the only ones rooting for the Patriots this weekend, and maybe except your friend who wants the Chargers to lose. But I think the Chargers can go in there and get it done. I think, they're going to have to control the ball with their short passing game that they like to use with Melvin Gordon and the other guy, Austin, his last name escapes me, but they like to use those running backs in the short passing game. So I think they need to do that to kind of keep New England off its heels a little bit and see how that goes there. But then they'll have to turn their defense loose with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram and hope they can get to Brady before he releases the ball. But I think this is the most vulnerable Patriots team during this run that they've had since 2010 when was the last time they didn't make the AFC title game. And I think the Chargers can be there to take advantage of doing that, especially because they have played well on the road. They know what it takes to get it done.
Mo, let's talk about this. Let's talk through this. Let's have the trust fall. Let's have a group hug, if you will, because I think we need to do whatever we need to do for Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady. I mean, for Phillip Rivers to beat Tom Brady. But give us the X's and the O's. What are you seeing on both sides of the ball? Is this going to be history repeats itself, or is this going to be a history-making game? Mo, it helps if I turn on your mic. I'm so sorry. Go right ahead, buddy. That's on me.
I missed what you said. I had to reconnect. What I
okay. All I was saying is, here we go again. The New England Patriots in the playoffs at Foxborough. It's just insert the name of the team. They're playing the Chargers. I mean, we got to do whatever it takes for the Chargers to beat the Patriots. But is it going to be history repeats itself, or is it going to be history-making tomorrow with the Patriots and the Chargers?
Well, I like the San Diego team on the road. They've been very good so far this year on the road. But, you've got New England playing at home again in a playoff game, and it's hard to really bet against them. As Ed said, that they played in 7 straight AFC Championship games trying to play in their 8th. I really do feel like the Chargers can win this football game. But, again, history will tell you that the Patriots win at home and move on. So I think it's a toss-up. It's a picking game at this point for me. But I do like the Chargers, and I will keep my fingers crossed that they will win and move on.
Well, let's all keep our fingers crossed and move on, because if the Patriots move on, I may have to buy a new bottle of bourbon, Ed. So I'm just saying, for my own sanity. So let's get to the game we all want to talk about, right? Is the Eagles and the Saints. My son, a big Carolina Panther fan. My granddaughter, they all live out there in North Carolina. So after the Panthers got eliminated, he's like, "All right, go Saints, go Drew Brees." He likes Drew Brees from college at Purdue, but either which way, he's a big Brees fan. I'm trying to coax him to go a different direction. That's not going to happen, so we're just going to have to get all the extra karma for the Eagles. What have they done this week to get prepared for a very, very good Saints? Let's not discount them at all. And I know that was a great win for you guys against Chicago, but you're not going to be able to have that kind of game indoors against New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, even though both defenses are playing really well, I know the Eagles are only giving up about 18 points a game over the last during this 4-game winning streak that they're on, and I know from weeks 10 to 16, the Saints have only given up 14 points a game. So yeah, you look at it and you think, well, this could be a shootout type of a game. I'm not so sure. I mean, I think we'll play it into the 20s. If it gets into the 30s, I'd be pretty surprised. I know the Eagles this week have talked about, and they don't need extra motivation, obviously, to play in a divisional playoff game. You know, that by itself is all you need to have, is knowing that your season's on the line. But, you know, a lot of them think that the Saints kind of ran up the score the last time on them, continued to throw. Drew Brees had a field day against the secondary that at the time was still trying to find itself, was coming to grips with injuries to Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby, their two starting cornerbacks. And they were trying to figure things out on the defensive line, which was kind of banged up at the time too. Brees threw for almost 550 yards against them in that game, or that's how much offense they put up, was close to 550 yards. Brees threw for over 400. But I think that the run game is going to be a factor. I'm not sure how successful the Eagles will be running it. They went against the Bears' number 1 ranked defense last week, and to Doug Peterson's credit, he continued to run the ball even though they weren't having success with it. They still ran it 23 times, and even though they didn't pick up over 2 yards per carry with those running attempts, they still had the threat of the run, and that kind of kept Chicago's defense at bay, unable to say, hey, are they going to throw or run this play, because the Eagles kept running even though it wasn't as successful. Now the Saints' run defense is ranked second. I think Doug is going to try to do the same thing, run the ball even if it isn't effective, but to do that, you can't be out of the game like they were in the first game. It was 24-7 at halftime of that game they played right before Thanksgiving. So I think they have to keep it close. And the one thing the Eagles are doing a good job of with Nick Foles right now at quarterback is scoring in the first quarter. Their first 13 games, they only scored points in 4 first quarters. 4 games they only scored in the first quarter of that first 13. But since Nick has come in, they've scored points in every single first quarter. Now, it's not been – once it was a touchdown, but the rest have been field goals. But still, you're scoring and you're having a productive first quarter. And mentally, that goes a long way. That not scoring in the first quarter was a real mental barrier for this team, almost deflating when they came out of that first quarter, and they're still stuck at 0. So that has helped them, and they're going to have to do that against the Saints, find a way to score on their first possession or even their second possession. And put points up in that first quarter, keep the game close so Doug can continue to call run plays to keep that New Orleans defense kind of playing honestly. And then the other thing you look at is New Orleans. The Saints haven't really played their starters for 3 weeks now. They didn't play any of them in the final game of the regular season. Brees took the day off because it meant nothing. The defense didn't play. Then they had the bye. So really we're going to see if the Saints can kind of come out and be clicking on all cylinders early, or if they're going to come out sluggish to begin this game. And that's kind of what the Eagles need, because I think the Saints are the better team roster-wise. But the Eagles have to play about as close to an A-plus game as they can, and they have to hope that the Saints come out a little sluggish and take a little while to find themselves to allow the Eagles a chance to stay in it.
Talk with us a little bit about that. What do the Eagles have to punch the Saints in the mouth? As Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan to get punched in. What do the Eagles got to do to punch the mouth? What are your thoughts on both sides of the ball with the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, with the Saints, with Drew Brees and Sean Payton never losing a home playoff game, that's somewhat concerning. But I think the Eagles got to come out and score early and try to score off and keep that dynamic offense off the field. To me, that will be the key in this game is keeping Drew Brees on the sideline. So, like I said, with them out without the starters pretty much playing in 3 weeks, I think the Eagles have a chance. They've kept the momentum going to come out and play and get started early. I mean, I think the biggest question for me, the most interesting part of this to me, and maybe it's a wild thought, and maybe Ed can debunk it, but is there any shot that if Nick Foles wins this football game and the Eagles continue to roll on, with there not being much difference in age, with Carson Wentz kind of being older when he became a rookie, and Nick Foles only being 29, is there a chance that the Eagles move on from Carson Wentz and trade him and recoup some assets and keep Nick Foles as the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles?
And then maybe a play for find a way to get that quarterback at Clemson. What's his name? The freshman, Trevor Lawrence. That has been talked about a lot this week. Is what if the Eagles do trade Wentz and the Raiders? Mike Mayock being in charge there now. He's a Philadelphia guy. He loved Carson Wentz when Wentz was coming out of North Dakota State. And the Raiders have 3 number 1 draft picks. Could they or would they be willing to give up 1, maybe 2 for Carson Wentz of those picks to the Eagles? Boy, if they did that, if they offered 2 number 1 picks, it'd be hard to say no to that. But and then maybe you sign Foles for a couple of years and then find a way, 3 years down the line to find a way to get Trevor Lawrence. I know he'll probably go number 1. I don't know if the Eagles would be able to get that far up, but they were able to get up the draft board to get Wentz back in 2016. So, it's exciting to think about the possibilities if you were to trade Wentz and see what you can get for him and turning this thing over to Nick Foles. But I just don't think the Eagles would do it. I really think that they believe Carson Wentz is the quarterback of the future. Nick Foles is the quarterback of the right now. And I don't think that's changed. Now, if in 3 weeks we're sitting here talking about Nick Foles standing under the confetti shower in Atlanta after winning a 2nd straight Super Bowl, then maybe that changes things. But as of right now, heading into this divisional round, I think Wentz is still the quarterback of the future, while Foles is the quarterback of now. But it is fun to think about what the Eagles could get for Wentz, especially if the Raiders under Mike Mayock and John Gruden say, hey, we'll give you 2 of our number 1 picks for him right now. It'd be tough to say no to that.
Yeah, the Raiders have that to give up too, so it's going to be interesting to see. But right now, we just got to focus on beating the Saints, guys. Last few minutes that we got left here. Obviously, the first day of the year this year brought what we call Black Monday. We saw coaches getting fired and coaches getting hired. So I want to kind of go through some of the hires. I'll kind of give you my thoughts on them. You guys kind of give me your grade on them, if you will. I'm still scratching my head on the Green Bay Packers hire after who they fired and who they hired. I'm like, the idea of firing them is that you can get somebody better. And so the Packers hired Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur. That's got to be a D, maybe a C, but no higher than a C grade on that. What were they thinking, Ed?
Well, Tom, I hate to disagree with you, but I really do like this hire of Matt LaFleur. I was actually singing Matt LaFleur's praises a couple of years ago when he was with Sean McVay out there in L.A. He's a young guy. He learned with Sean McVay, went to Tennessee. Tennessee was up and down this year. There's no question about that. But, he did help them get into the playoffs. He did some decent things with Mariota. He couldn't help Mariota getting hurt. But, I like this hire. I really think he'll do a really good job with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you could have said maybe Jim Caldwell would have been a good fit there. But, I like this hire. Sometimes, we can kind of get caught up in the flashy names and the bigger names. And in Cleveland, we certainly see that with, I think, Freddie Kitchens. I don't know if that's been official or not. But, sometimes it's the under-the-radar guy that pays dividends. Look, the Eagles hired Andy Reid when he was a 40-year-old quarterbacks coach in Green Bay in 1999. And look what a great coach Andy Reid's turned out to be. Look at Doug Peterson. Everybody kind of scoffed at the notion that Peterson would be a good head coach, and yet he's the last head coach standing from the 7 that were hired in 2016. All the other guys that were hired that year are now on the unemployment line, or they were fired. Maybe some of them have been rehired. But sometimes it's not always the big name. It's the successful hire. It's a guy like Matt LaFleur who has a good track record, a guy who has a good track record of working with quarterbacks. And I really like this hire. I got to be honest. I like Matt LaFleur at the Green Bay.
Well, I guess I should maybe just backpedal a little bit. I'm not saying that he's not going to be